Freddie Jones on trumpet. Very nice, very nice. Thank you so much. Well, here we are. We're here to really to remember and to celebrate those who have given their lives for this nation. I was mentally preparing myself last night. I was thinking about what I wanted to say, and I was laying out my dress uniform for the day. Being a Navy man, it didn't surprise me. It was dress blues. And laid out my suit and ironed my shirt and put on my, my dad, many of you know this, my dad was a professional trumpet player, and so he passed on March 4th, and every time I hear the horn, I think of him. And I put on the French cuff, put on his cufflinks today, and put on his little tie tack that he wore, and kind of remember him. And he had to pull out stories when he served during World War II. You had to really pull it out of him to ask him anything about it. He was a petty officer, second-class signalman on a troop transport, which in the Pacific was always under air attack because they were carrying Marines to invade Japan and moving to take back the Pacific. And so, always having something dropped on him, something shot on him, and patching the ship, trying to make it where they could get to point A to point B. And so that's lots of lives lost. And I think about Memorial Day, and I think about, some of the people that I saw come and go, and some made it back, some didn't make it back. And one of the jobs I had when I was in the military, I was with the commander of Submarine Force Pacific Fleet. I was a communications yeoman. I don't know if you remember ticker tape. Before computers, it was ticker tape. And when my job is, I was a third-class petty officer, and my job was to cut messages, receive messages, send them to the submarines in the Pacific Fleet during Vietnam. And it's the only communication they received. And they were apt not to surface very often. If they ever did, numbers were never on the boats. And the nukes we had were the Jackson and the Vallejo, and they never surfaced. And they had two crews. They had a gold crew and a blue crew, and they had two different captains, two complete different crews. And when they would come in every 6 months, they'd load up with a new crew, and out they'd go. And so my job was to send correspondence, and they ranged basically from immediate messages to priority messages to routine messages to what we call family grams. I hated family grams because what you did is they were filler, and every 2 hours you had to send a message 6 times before you could drop it off. You can make sense of that. But fillers were family grams, and family grams would often read like this: I regret to inform you of the loss of your son. That kind of thing. I regret to inform you of the loss of your brother. And knowing full well, when they receive that message, they can't get off the boat because the boats don't come back until they're ready to come back. And it's rare that they would surface. But all those experiences you have during those times. And so today we're here to celebrate those people that give their lives for this great nation upon which we live. It was May 5th, 1866, laying flowers on the graves for the first time in Waterloo, New York. The first time flowers and decorations of the graves. It was in 1868, General John A. Logan, who was the president of the Grand Army of the Republic, declared that May 30th was going to be Decoration Day, that we would decorate all the grave sites of all the fallen soldiers. The only problem with that was that the Confederate States didn't pick up on that too much. And they didn't like that idea, so it was really only a part of the Northern culture. And the Confederate States had their own day in April where they honored their fallen soldiers. It was just after World War I when they declared it kind of that National Memorial Day, where we all together gather to celebrate the fallen soldiers. Over the years, and it was in 1971 that Congress declared it was going to be the last Monday in the month of May, and they made that a federal holiday. I still have a little bit of resentment about that, just a little, because it was like when it was the 30th, it stood alone no matter what day of the week. It was more about remembering. And so it kind of got morphed into something else. It went from the fallen soldiers, and then it was a good thing. It kind of went involved in all the remembrance of all those that went before us. I remember going out and putting flowers on Memorial Day on my grandmother's grave and honoring those people who went before us. But then it kind of, when we turned it in 1971 into a 3-day holiday, it became like the opening of summer. And it became about boats, and it became about hot dogs and hamburgers, and that's not a bad thing. I ate plenty yesterday, trust me. Shish kebab, oh my goodness, it was excellent. Not a bad thing, but let us not forget, let us remember what Memorial Day is really, really all about. And I hope you're willing to do that. So just take that moment to realize what this day is really all about and the idea of remembering. One of the things that I love is history, and I love to delve into things. And I was talking to my father-in-law about, I heard a story that he had a brother who passed away in World War II. So I went research, and you know me, I like to get on the internet, did some digging and messing around. And so on the screen, in a moment, I hope you'll see a picture of my wife Eliza's uncle, who she never knew. He was from Canada. He was a school teacher, and when he graduated from college, he started teaching school. The one-room schoolhouse, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And eventually he decided that, and he loved the kids, but felt guided to enroll in the Air Force, the Royal Canadian Air Force. He was a sergeant navigator. Now, the job of a navigator on a bomber, in those days, there was no let's hook up the GPS and plug in the equipment. It wasn't like that at all. The job of the navigator was huge because, you only have so much gas. You can't wander around too long trying to find your target, because if you wander too long, you won't have enough gas to get home. So it's not just as important to find your target, but then you want to get home. And so his job, when the sun is out and the stars are out, life gets easy. But when the clouds come in different times, you have to go with, a different way of seeing things. And so you refer to maps, refer to rivers, and he was apparently excellent at what he did. And this, to me, when I read his story, his name was George Weston Lott, middle name after his father. When I read his story, the part that saddened me the most was it was March 7th, 1945, that he was shot down over Germany. It was 2 months to the day before Germany surrendered. And that's what I did. I went, oh, man. Our soldiers were scattered all over, buried all over Germany during that time. And it was 1946 that we began gathering up the bodies of those soldiers. And he's laid to rest at Rheinberg, Germany, at a war cemetery. And so real people we know, people that we never had a chance to know, people, can you imagine her grandparents, the word came that day that they found out that their son had been shot down over Germany only moments before the war was coming to an end. For me, serving during Vietnam, I think of my friend here that you're about to see, Roger William Elling. His nickname was Guts because he was just a gutsy guy. And when I would connect with him when we were both in the military, and I would try to find out what he was up to, the last person, I said, well, the last time I saw him, he was running a riverboat in Da Nang or wherever he was, and he was skiing behind it. That's kind of like what he was all about. In high school, my hometown, there's a hill, a street that comes way down to Owens Park. It's a Point Defiance Park in Tacoma, Washington. And it runs for 3 or 4 football fields at about that pitch. And it comes down to the parking lot. And then when you leave, you go out this long paved to get up because it's way down to the water. And when I was a kid and you wanted to use a skateboard, they didn't make them like that. Now they're big or expensive. They got fancy wheels. You can do all kinds of stuff. When we had making skateboards, you put on your own wheels off your roller skates, the metal, you know what I'm talking about, and you made your own, and you'd be lucky to even go a couple feet on them. Pretty dangerous operation, and you had to practice really well. Down at Owens Beach, me and my friends, I said, oh my goodness, look what he's up to now. Now, coming down the hill like this is one thing. Coming down the hill on a skateboard on your hands doing a handstand is another. That's guts. That's what they called him.